Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our episode on German unification. I'm assuming you've seen part one, so if you haven't, go check that out because you'll need some of that context to understand this one. Anyways, let's get into it. If you recall, in the last episode, we talked about how the Frankfurt National Assembly was dissolved in 1849, but that doesn't quite mark the end of the story. In 1861, William IV died and was replaced by Wilhelm I. He appointed a man named Otto von Bismarck to become the minister president of Prussia. During Bismarck's tenure, the country rapidly industrialized and urbanized. Its natural resources, industrial capabilities, and the Solver Rhine allowed the country to become a powerful exporter, which strengthened the Prussian economy. He also oversaw the strengthening of the military to secure the country's ambitions. Bismarck subscribed to the idea of realpolitik. It's a German word that roughly translates to realistic politics. Realpolitik basically means making decisions through the lens of pragmatism and goals rather than ideology or ethics. Bismarck's investments in the military would come to fruition in 1864, when Prussia and Austria fought against Denmark for the territories of Schleswig and Holstein. Short story short, Denmark lost. It conceded Schleswig to Prussia and Holstein to Austria. However, Austria soon threw a tantrum because Holstein was inaccessible to the rest of their empire without crossing through Prussian territory. Bismarck, knowing a war with Austria was on the horizon, formed an alliance with Italy, assuring that they would receive the Italian majority parts of the Austrian Empire in return for their support. In the summer of 1866, Prussia invaded Holstein. The German Confederation and Austria declared war on Prussia. Less than a week later, the Italians declared war on Austria. Fighting a two-front war against the more well-equipped Prussian military meant that Austria lost the war within 2 months. As the spoils of war, Prussia annexed the northern parts of the German Confederation, forming the creatively named North German Confederation. In 1868, Queen Isabella II of Spain was deposed. This left the seat of the Spanish monarch open. This is relevant to German unification because Prussian Prince Leopold was a candidate to succeed Isabella II. However, France was in a bit of a pickle, as that would mean being surrounded by Spain to their south and the North German Confederation to their east. To amend this, they came up with the brilliant idea of nicely asking Wilhelm to force Leopold to decline the offer. To absolutely no one's surprise, he did not. Wilhelm sent the telegram to Bismarck, who edited it to make it appear as if the two had been rude to each other. This humiliated the French ruler, Napoleon III, whose popularity was already waning. So on July 19th, 1870, France declared war in a desperate attempt to restore Napoleon's popularity. Seeing France as the aggressor, the southern German states sided with the North German Confederation. With backing from the south, the Confederation was able to mobilize far more men and do it in a much shorter period of time. The French were unable to send as many men to the front lines in such a small time frame, which led to them being consistently defeated. The Germans were able to capture large swaths of northern France and eventually Paris. On January the 18th, 1871, the formation of the German Empire was declared at the Palace of Versailles. It would include the southern German states and the French territory of Alsace-Lorraine. Finally, after decades of trying to unify Germany, it had been achieved. And the ramifications of this new empire were enormous. Imperial Germany under Bismarck underwent the Kulturkampf, or cultural struggle, which was a systematic persecution of Catholics. It should also be noted that most of the German Empire's Catholics lived in the south, while most North Germans, including Bismarck, were Protestants. This geographic divide in religion persists to this day. However, during this time, Germany also saw a reformed civil and criminal code, adoption of a gold standard currency, banning of socialist parties, accident and seniors insurance, and a universal healthcare program. The people also got to take part in the government of this new empire, and by people, I mean men. The Reichstag, Germany's parliament and one of the nation's two legislative chambers, held elections with universal suffrage for all men over 25. However, the upper chamber, the Bundesrat, was undemocratic and was instead comprised of the states themselves. Seats in the Bundesrat were allocated based on population. On a global scale, a united Germany became a force to be reckoned with. It shifted the power in continental Europe away from France, became a global hub for science and innovation, and started a colonial empire. Going into the 20th century, Germany's naval buildup caused an arms race with Britain, which would be one of the contributing factors to the outbreak of World War I. It's safe to say that the world we live in today would be very different had Prussia not unified Germany. German unification was an event that shook up the politics of Europe and most certainly altered the course of the 20th century and beyond. That wraps up the first ever two-part episode on this show. Vote in the poll which you can find under this episode on Spotify to tell me which piece of forgotten history you want to see next. And remember, as Mark Twain once said, don't let school get in the way of your education. With that said, I hope you have a lovely day. See you next time.